So some time ago I released a resource which I thought was good, but after a few months it turned out it had a lot of flaws. And what that resource exactly is a first person dynamic view camera, which I'm just going to well present. But as usual, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, also check out my Patreon content, but let's get into the video. And I am in this place right now because I kind of wanted to give you guys an update. This is basically the script right here that I already made a tutorial on, but well, I'm doing something a bit better. But basically, this is the dynamic camera. There is few features like the drift, the sway, as well as view bobbing and some other additional stuff like a motion blur and a change of the field of view. And you can also get this script from the creator hub, but I wouldn't really recommend doing that right now because I'm just going to talk about the flaws of this script, where if I just open it, you can see that the last update was a bit over a year ago. And if I just scroll down, one of the flaws was this limiter basically not working too well with the FPS unlocker, and also Roblox basically updating the frame rate cap in settings. And some other additional stuff that people basically informed me about was basically if my character just looks fully down and then tries to move, it's basically just going to flicker like this because it's well rotating the character because the camera is basically on the other side. So I just had to figure some stuff out, which I'm just going to well present. But another thing is that this camera script doesn't really work too well on different platforms, except the stuff like the sway and the view bobbing, since the drift is calculated from the mouse delta from user input service. But now instead of continuing how bad the script is, I'm just going to show the improved version that I'm currently working on, which is not released yet, and that's because it's well not finished, but later on is also going to be an open source project. And if you are a Patreon member, you're going to have early access to the script, as well as the ability to basically test it. But anyways, I have this script, I have the components, and I have a camera settings. If I just go to the camera script first, there is some of the stuff that's work in progress with some of the variables, but I basically just have the mouse delta. I also prepared to get the thumbstick delta, as well as this get device function, which like I said is still a work in progress. There is also some stuff with the blur, but I'm not really going to cover that. I firstly just wanted to present few systems, like this time it's going to use the overall delta, which is going to be the operation from the delta tab, which is going to be a function depending on the device type. For now I just left it as the mouse delta. But basically I utilized the utility script, Well anyways, I basically just get everything from the script, or rather almost everything, to just make the code more readable and a bit easier to customize and understand. But I basically get the magnitude from the humanoid root part to determine how fast the player is moving, as well as the sway values, and also calculate the velocity, and this time I'm using a different Lerp function. And about this Lerp function, if I just go to the utility script, it's going to be right here. What's special about this Lerp is that this time it utilizes delta time, meaning that it's going to be frame independent. So instead of having a limiter like I had in my previous script, I won't need that anymore and basically just operate on the frame independent Lerp. And also what this Lerp does, it utilizes the HL. And this half-life, in this case, is basically a logarithmic operation, which, and this is going to sound nerdy, it calculates a number related to scaling or just time constants. And for this use case, it basically means that it calculates the time it takes for something to be reduced in half. And this is a value for something called an exponential decay. So this HL, from the lambda symbol or the half-life, this is the decay constant variable. And this is why it's used in this Lerp function. And explaining that kind of fried my brain a little bit, so if I'm wrong someone can correct me down in the comments. But continuing, I can for example just print out the variable table and show you the current velocity of the character, where it's basically just going to increase as well as decrease. And it's doing that in the span of 1 second. And this also makes it so the character has this like stamp effect from the view bobbing whenever they stop moving. And to basically reduce that, I can simply just go into the camera settings and change the T value from the Lerp settings to like 0.5. So now it's going to be like this. So that's for the velocity calculations, but now there is another thing to cover from the mistakes that I made in the previous camera script, which was basically the character flickering while looking up or down. And how I managed to do that was basically not too easy. So I have a map strength variable, which is a method in the utility script from the camera pitch. And now what this camera pitch is, if I again just print it out, the pitch is going to be 0 whenever I am looking straight forward, but it's going to increase if I look up and decrease if I look down. And these values are ranging from, as you can see, 1.39 to the same value but negative. And now basically how was I supposed to kind of, let's say, revert this number to be on, for example, 1 while looking straight and on 0 while looking up or down. So now I'm just going to explain how I managed to do that. So let's first get the mapping strength, which is going to be the utility, then the map pitch. And this was done by a lot of math calculations. And as you can see from this comment right here, this is a quadratic function, where x is the pitch value. So if you just normalize it to be an absolute number, that's later divided by the constants and the pitch strength range. And I also need to talk about the range because it's in the camera settings under the constants. And as you can see from this comment right here, this is the max camera pitch while looking up or down, and this value is used as a strength multiplier for the view bobbing, where exceeding it might cause the character to walk backwards while fully looking up or down. And this is the limit after which the strength multiplier is going to be 0. So if the maximum was this, then there is going to be roughly a 0.19 degree range where the view bobbing is going to have no effect. Then I make the map local variable, which is basically just 1 minus the normalized to the power of 2, because again I somehow needed to revert this number. Then I just floor the number and then clamp it, so it doesn't go below 0 and above 1. Since again this clamped variable is going to be map strength multiplier. And lastly there is the bobbing y variable, which is again going to be a method from the utility of the get view bobbing value from the current velocity. And this one I just copied from the previous script, where it's basically just going to return the curve, which is going to be the scene value from the clock times camera settings, then the base frequency, then times the camera settings set frequency. Then it gets multiplied by the velocity and then divided by the camera settings and the base multiplier. And this base multiplier value is this value right here, which is again going to be the same as in my previous camera script. Then I just set the camera C-frame to only have the view bobbing. But that's basically everything I have right now. Again, I just wanted to give you guys an update and show you how to basically make this, since I know that it's going to be useful for some people to have something like a frame independent Lerp. But lastly, I'm just going to cover some of the stuff in the utility script, like the, for example, get sway values, where again this is basically the same as I had in my previous camera script, and I was also thinking about changing this, and I will need to actually showcase this. So this way is basically just the character going in this kind of smooth motion, where it's basically just going in a circle like this. The motion on this is pretty stiff, and I don't really have an idea on how to change this yet. I'm probably just going to figure something out, but you guys can also leave suggestions down in the comments. I thought it would be nice to probably just have like a noise map and just randomize these values instead. And later on I was also thinking about adding different stuff, like if your character was, for example, to land, it would do the same movement as it did in the, I don't know why my toolbox is hidden, but basically the same as in the easy first person. And more about that, I also have different stuff planned, like for example having a camera shake that you can give to the player, where it's just going to shake their camera for a certain amount of time, as well as also an explosion effect. But yeah, that's going to be all about this update, or even a devlog if you can name it that. But again, leave a like and subscribe to support the channel, also check out my Patreon content, and thank you for watching, hope you had a nice day, and yeah,